Hey, in the last tutorial, we just went over how to use PhotoScan and how to take pictures and go around objects. And even if you followed all the instructions, your final output may not be of a quality that you want or that you're happy with. So this is the image sequence that I used. And, there's some pretty good image coverage here. But after you process it, I mean, the mesh might be kind of deteriorated. So there are a few things you can do to optimize your workflow. If you're using a smartphone or an Apple phone, you can download this app here, 645 Pro, and it's pretty cheap. It's only $5.49. And basically what it does is it allows you to take uncompressed raw images with your iPhone. The images are pretty big. I think on my iPhone 5, they were maybe 22 megabytes each. So make sure you clear off as much data as you can before you start. But here's what it looks like, all the settings. You can just shoot in manual, adjust your ISO and your shutter speed. And once you have like an okay looking picture, you can start there. And basically once you have all of your images taken, just like you did before, you can load it into Lightroom and start fixing it up. And I'm just loading up Lightroom here. If you don't already have it, you can pay for it on a monthly basis. I think it's just $10.99 a month, which is actually really good. I think it comes with Photoshop as well, Lightroom and Photoshop. So you can kind of take all of your images and process them in Lightroom, which is what we'll go over in a second. And finally, after you have those two stages done, so you're able to take a raw photo with whatever. If you have a normal DSLR, that's fine too. But if you have an iPhone, this is what you can use, this app here. But anyways, you have your raw photo, you have Lightroom, and you drag it in there. And the next issue is that you don't really want to stay around the house all day, right? So what you can do is take all of your images, save them into folders, and just separate them out, have them all done, and load it into Agisoft. And then you can download a third application. This one's completely free, called TeamViewer, and it just basically gives you remote access to your computer. So what I do is set up all of my images, process them in Lightroom, have all the images like aligned and ready to go, and then if I'm out, just load up my phone, connect to my computer, and basically hit the next step thing. So I can be anywhere and just kind of keep processing. Because if your computer isn't so fantastic like mine, like mine's a piece of shit, and sometimes processing things can take like 12 hours. I mean, which is pretty brutal. But if it's continuously processing while you're not in the house, I mean, you're guaranteed one good scan every day. You know, maybe two or three. If you take less photographs, you can have even more scans. But it just depends on your hardware. But this is kind of what I do to keep my computer churning out some decent meshes all the time. So I guess now we're just going to go into each step in a little more depth. Okay, for the first step, all you want to do is after you take all your photos, just open up Lightroom, say File, and then click on Import Photos and Videos. And at this point, you'll have all of your stuff into your library, which will look something like this. And then from here, you just have to find all the photos that you want. So click on the first one. Oops. Yeah, I already pre-selected mine, so I'm just going to deselect them now. There we go. So click on the first one, and then find your last photo, which for me is this one. And then go into Develop. I think I already had some presets on mine, so I'm just going to reset them. Right, so what you want to do in Lightroom is just make the image look as flat as possible. So if you don't know what that means or you don't know what to do, just literally open up Lightroom and just copy what I do, because for the most part, it's pretty well the same. So for this one, I'm just going to turn the highlights down, boost the shadows, take the whites down, blacks up, and just pop the clarity. So that's okay. You can play with the exposure a little bit too. Yeah. So that looks pretty flat to me. So all I'll do at this point is everything is already selected. So I just hit synchronize. And you get a little menu like this. So just hit synchronize, and all the photos that you have selected will have the same settings that you just adjusted. And then from here, I just go File, Export. Choose whatever folder you want to put it into. And then down here is where you want to be careful. So I turn mine into JPEGs, but your image quality could be all the way down, right? Just make sure you max out your image quality so you don't lose too much image quality on it, but it also reduces the size of your files a lot, which may help you if you have a really crappy computer like I do, because Agisoft can process it pretty rapidly. So I just do this and then just hit export, and it could take quite a while depending on how many photos you have. So just sort of pick your folder, hit export, and just walk away for a moment. So, and then at this point, basically everything's the same. You export all your files, and you're kind of back to stage one. You just put it into Agisoft and do the same thing. So this entire Lightroom stage and taking raw photos is optional, but definitely worth it in my opinion. Okay, so the same way that 645 Pro and Lightroom kind of go together. 645 will give you your raw files, and Lightroom is kind of how you're going to modify everything. These next two programs kind of work together as well, but work in a different way. So we talked about TeamViewer and how you can remotely access someone's computer, and it's really useful, like when you're out at a coffee shop and you can just continue to process while you're not at the house, and that's great. But sometimes you might have a few friends and you're all working on a project. So what you can kind of do is say one person goes out and gets 4 or 5 different scans, and you want to have them all processed by tomorrow. There's another site here, completely free. You don't have to download anything. It's called WeTransfer, right? So this site, I think, yeah, you can send up to 2 gigabytes free. So you just take me to free, and all you do is add your files, add their email, your email, and just a little memo. So what I do is just add all of my photos that I'm done with. So I'll take all my photos, process them in Lightroom, save them out as JPEGs, and then just drop the whole thing in here. And I'm never over 2 gigabytes, right? I mean, I think that for my machine, like when I'm reaching like 1.8, 1.9 gigabytes as a mesh, I can't even really play with it in ZBrush or refine it. It's past the point of no return. Like, so this works great for me. So just grab all your photos when you're done in Lightroom, and just drag and drop them here and send them. And it's you can send, if you have 5 people, send 1 to each person, process them all on their computer, which you can add all of your computers to TeamViewer. So you could have 1 computer that can access 5. You guys can all work together and use it like your own little free network, right? So with these two, that's what I do anyways. I have a few friends that I send files around, and it really speeds up the process. You could have a week's worth of rendering done in one night, and no one needs to buy a new machine, right? So yeah, so I mean that pretty well concludes this tutorial. Just a few programs to optimize your workflow. The 645 Pro app if you're using an iPhone. If you're using a Samsung, you can just click on Take Raw if you have the Samsung Galaxy. Lightroom, so how you can process all your raw photos. These 2 things are completely optional. And then just ways of dividing the workload. So remote access for your computer, and then how to transfer it around computers, right? Yeah, for the next tutorial, I think we're going to be getting into just more mesh refinement. So we're going to be working in ZBrush primarily, maybe a little bit of Photoshop. And I'll just show you how I go about taking apart my scans and kind of managing the data, refining them so they're not so large, and then sort of putting them all together. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one.